so I look at doing business as not just making a profit, but following a PPP model, which is people, planet, profit, right? And so people come first, the planet, and then profit, right? And so if you can impact and empower and at the same time, I think that is the best approach.
Podcast World, Cabin Studios, welcome to another episode of The Value, the language of business for those of you seeking to build or invest in companies that are scalable and highly valuable. I'm your host, Kevin Valley, and today we are talking to a digital payment specialist, chartered accountant, private equity investor, serial entrepreneur, two-time Olympian, a real Bahamian patriot, or in his words, an island boy, in the form of Nicholas Rees. Nicholas, how you doing?
Hey, Kevin. Thanks.
Boy, we got him laughing, man. Look at it.
Thank you for that, man. No, I definitely consider myself an island boy. I hail from the islands in the Caribbean, and I won't just limit that to the Bahamas. I represent the entire Caribbean when I step abroad. So I thank you for inviting me and having me on. It's a pleasure. And thank you for that introduction. Look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, man. The pleasure's all mine. So, Nicholas, in looking you up, I've seen, a bunch of Kanoo. There's a lot of coverage on Kanoo, which is your digital payments app slash platform that you have going on. I know you have it under a non-bank electronic retail payments institution license with the Central Bank of the Bahamas. All right. But in looking you up, I see there's so much more to Nicholas Rees than Kanoo, that I think it's an injustice to not speak about, the entire essence, the entire career, and everything that goes into what you do right now and what you used to do. If you want, we could start from childhood, what got you into the swimming in the Olympics and everything. Or we could start after your last stint in the Olympics in 2004, and you started your first business in June 2006. I think it was the water company, Everfresh.
Yeah, I guess I'll just give you the full background. So I was born, 1982, in Grand Bahama, in Freeport, Grand Bahama. My mother was American, my father's Bahamian. Fun fact, my grandfather, my father's father, was also a VC advisor to King George. Was one of the first fighter pilots in World War One, and actually trained and developed the training manual for fighting in the air for the RAF, and later traveled to the United States to train the trainers of the United States Air Force. So that's just a fun background. He retired and literally sailed across the Atlantic Ocean alone in a 30-foot sloop. Was the first person in history recorded to do so single-handedly. Was awarded the Blue Water Medallion and sailed from Wales to the Bahamas, where he met my grandmother and settled in Mangrove Key, Andros. And so that's the origin of my father's background. And so yeah, fun fact, side note, but very instrumental in my own personal story. It is a factor that drives me to succeed, right? And to focus on succeeding and building and growing. When he died, a lot of the family wealth was lost. So our family started out dirt poor, having to rebuild back wealth that would have been generational, tracing our wealth and history back to the 1400s. So this is something my father always told me, you have big shoes to fill. And so I took that on. I took that to heart from an early age and always used that as motivation, right? So the story of how he won the VC is quite amazing in and of itself. He was in on a flight training mission in during the war, at the beginning of the war, and he noticed he was and this was open cockpit. This was the Vickers gun bus, open cockpit with the gun on the front, and so he noticed 8 planes approaching, which he thought was from a distance were friendly aircraft, which he flew to join the formation. And upon approaching, realized there were 8 German bombers approaching the city of London, and he immediately engaged 1 to 8, was able to shoot down 4 of the planes, was shot in the leg, ran out of ammo, and continued his approach and attack with his pistol from the open air cockpit, was able to chase. He shot the leader of the formation down as well, and that dispersed the rest of the fleet. And for that action, he was awarded the Victoria Cross, which is the highest medal of gallantry that you can win for the British forces. And that cross is on display at the British Museum in London in the Lord Ashcroft exhibit for
Okay.
VC medals. He's been dubbed the bravest man in the world. So that keeps me motivated that, many things that we can accomplish if we just stay determined, focused, and are brave enough to step forward and jump off the cliff, so to speak. I started swimming at an early age. I swam all the way up to college. I went to the Ohio State University on scholarship, made my first Olympic Games at the age of 17, and then went on, graduated in '03, moved to Spain, lived in Spain for a year, which was interesting. I got to learn the culture, learn the language. I trained with the number 2 sprinter in the world at the time, and I went on to the '04 Athens Games, upon which I was so burnt out as an athlete, just completely, utterly burnt out. Honestly, I literally just gave up. Didn't have really a great experience at the last games, and was gonna move to Spain and just open a bar on in the south of Spain on the beach, and that was my planned next journey. Got a call from my father who said, "Absolutely not. You need to get behind back and do your master's degree." And so,
Why are Caribbean fathers like this? Because that bar in Spain, in the south of Spain by the beach, sounds so nice. Like I want to do that now. But go on.
yeah, so he persuaded. I came back and then I went and I did the master's degree of Masters of Business Administration at the University of Miami. And to be honest with you, that degree I use more than any other piece of education that I would have obtained. Well, I would say my chartered accountant I use quite a bit, but the biggest value I got in my entrepreneurial journey is through doing the MBA program. So yeah, so any viewers out there that are interested in getting into entrepreneurship and business, an MBA is an excellent choice to look at, giving you the full schematics of a business from inside out. And so yeah, after the MBA, I found myself back in the Bahamas in '05, and I couldn't, I had all these credentials. I had a master's degree, a bachelor's degree in finance, and a minor's in economics, and former Olympian. And I applied for a job at every single bank, every single oil company, offshore bank and onshore bank in country. Literally went through the phone book and itemized every single company and sent every single company a cover letter, a resume, specifically directed to those entities. I did not get one interview,
Wow.
not one.
With all
And
of that pedigree?
not one interview. So I was lucky enough to get a job offer working at a local radio station selling airtime, which actually turned out to be quite a blessing because it was my first job per se, like my first job post education. I'm a man now. I making my own money and right. So I got introduced to sales. Right? And this whole concept, and I was a very shy guy, and I was not, if I didn't make a sale, I didn't get paid. It was fully commission based, right? So you had to go make your earnings. And so had a very good mentor at the time who taught me about selling and the art of selling and how to sell. And he spent a lot of time, Monday morning meetings drilling down on us on all of the key metrics of making a sale and presenting yourself and pulling on different things. And so that kind of got for me a bit dull. After about 2 years there, I kind of figured out that I could sell annual packages and I'd lock in annual income and I would do that once a year and not have to work for the rest of the year. I just lock in. And so I found myself with time on my hands and that then iterated in my head to start getting into this water business. And so I started my first water company, which is a roadside water depot. And it succeeded for about a year, and then it collapsed. I moved into that with partnership with my father in the Everfresh water company in '05, and that actually still exists today and is expanding and it has been profitable from day one. And that was drinking water, so fresh drinking water. So what we did is we reimagined the manufacturing process and re-engineered that and then automated the filling component. So we eliminated tremendous overhead and we cut costs. So we dropped the market cost for fresh water by 80%. So whereas before you were buying 5 gallon bottles for I think about $5, $6 at the time. We came to market with a dollar price for 5 gallons, and so that was a huge impact. And what that did is that changed lives. So like persons were able to, feed, actually buy more food for their families because they weren't spending so much on the water. There was a lady who basically she was head over heels. She thanked us for putting in the system. She had 6 children on dialysis and, constant, use of fresh water. And she was running through 20 bottles a week at, $5, $6. That's a significant dent in a single mother home with 6 children. And so she was able to take that additional savings and put that into food. It became a real community staple. So we dropped these units in the individual communities so persons can go and access the water. Comes in handy as well when we have hurricanes, for sure. So that business is self-sustaining. I'm not actively involved with that. Did that in collaboration with my father, who refused to allow me to work in the business, officially work in the business. I should say that. So I was working the business for free,
Yeah.
right? So I remember, we opened the first site, and he made me stand up on the side of the road with a sign that said "free water,"
Well, shoot.
right? And tokens. So like these metal tokens. So I stood on the side of the road for a week every time we opened a machine, and I would just with this sign, free water, and just help people would be passing and turning around, and that was how we got the word out. So we completely grassroots. We went into the community. We said, hey, come and taste the water, come and try the water, and so we really got ingrained in the community and even able to make impacts in places like the prison in New Providence. So our prison, we were able to put a water system in that is specifically for the inmates, so the inmates have unlimited access to fresh drinking water, which was a high burden and cost for the prison. If you imagine you have to, you have a mandate to provide X amount of water, a minimum amount of water for each prisoner. And so now we were able to fix that cost for them and provide unlimited water basically for those inmates, which improve lives to an extent and ease tension within the prison itself. So again, like a major social, what we feel is a social impact, right? And so I look at doing business as not just making a profit, but following a PPP model, which is people, planet, profit, right? And so people come first, the planet, and then profit, right? And so if you can impact and empower and at the same time, I think that is the best approach. So it's being in the water business has always left that stain on my character per se, or not, I wouldn't say stain, but a mark on my character that, hey, focus on providing value to, to humanity at the end of the day. And whatever it is you're doing, I've always been taught, whatever you do, make sure you help people, right? And so that's at the core of everything that, all of our businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very aligned there. My late father had this saying that life is a loan that you repay through your service to others, and I've adopted that as how I operate as my status quo.
I realized it just kind of got to 2005, and so you would ask me also to come forward from '05. So it started there. I then went in a different pathway. I read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm sure you've read it. It's a must read. So anyone that I mentor or that I work with, I always advise them to. There's a number of books that I would recommend. But that is a book that changed my trajectory in life. And in that book, it said, if you want to understand the business, you must have a basic understanding of accounting. And so I was always good in accounting in college and in my MBA. And I just happened to see an ad in the paper for the ACCA. And I literally picked up the phone, I called the number, and the next week I was enrolled, or in process of being enrolled in the program. I started that in 2007, the ACCA, and I completed that certification. It was 14 exams, and I completed that in 2016. I literally would take my vacation, my 2 weeks vacation, one week in June, one week in December, and I would study, take a test, study, take a test, and then work in between. So it was like this massive hustle. And then in '07, well, I would say I got married. I had my first child as well.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Congrats.
and
Nice.
I was lucky enough. I was lucky enough to marry my high school, you know, first love. We met sixth grade at 16, and we have a very long history together. And now have three beautiful children. But that throw all of that into this study work. Actually had to live with my parents for 4 years. In the first part of my marriage with child.
Right.
Um, had a bout of cancer in '05.
Oh, sucks.
Really, this was in the middle of my MBA program. But again, like just continuing to drive forward. I remember doing homework on my hospital bed. It's not what happens to you in life; it's how you deal with it. So that was kind of a bit of a fallback, which I had to engage in monitoring and monthly, quarterly testing for a number of years, and have since been completely cleared of cancer, thank God. In 2010, I got my first opportunity, I would say, to work in the financial arena. And so by this point, I would have had my MBA. I would have had, been well into my accounting studies and certification, and have one business under my belt. And now I'm going to have this opportunity to work with the Bahamas International Securities Exchange, which was a tremendous opportunity because I always wanted to invest in stocks and bonds, as I always thought that I would end up being a trader, believe it or not, like in
Okay.
college.
Okay.
Yeah, and I even played around with a bit of trading in college and made some good money, and then lost some good money. So I kind of got like goo-eyed over the commodities space, and I was like,
Right.
oh, these commodities, let me invest in these. I literally lost about $12,000 in college on orange on a bet that there was going to be an orange freeze.
Oh,
And
wow.
after that, yeah, for oranges in Florida, and after that, I never invested in commodities again. But here comes now this opportunity to work with this amazing exchange in the Bahamas. It's a small exchange, but all of the economic, the rules, the procedures, the processes for the capital markets are there and exist. And so it afforded me a unique opportunity to work within the capital market from within the core. Out of that, the exchange started a depository, Bahamas Central Securities Depository. And I was charged with basically setting that up, which now put me in a position to oversee, design, and implement a multi-company merger because that involved the merger of three entities around one software technology to secure a license as a clearing and depository institution with the central bank and implement services with connectivity to BISIC, to the exchange, as the approved depository for the exchange. So
Okay.
I had a very unique opportunity to really have a hands-on approach going through that whole process and leading that process along with my mentor and employer at the time, Keith Davies, who's the CEO of BISIC and also now CEO for Kanoo.
Right.
So that was an interesting opportunity which led to me leaving that entity in 2012 to go and work officially for the first time in an accounting firm. That was in 2016. I would have completed the ACCA and then I moved to this accounting firm where I then did my first valuation and really got this love of valuation. So
Oh, yeah?
I always wanted to do the certified, valuator. I commend you on that. I think, I love the art and the science of valuation. I've done a few and I had some unique opportunities there at that firm, from valuations to audits to receiverships. We did a receivership for a massive, two food stores. It was just an interesting, broad subset of experiences. It was while I was there that I met these gentlemen who had this idea to create an IMAX theater in the Bahamas. And I decided to help those gentlemen for free and really work with them from many, many years, building that from 2012 to 2016, 17, in that period of really building out their business plan. And then at the later stages, we were able to lock in on some massive funding opportunity that basically kicked the project off, which was the largest in the history of the Bahamas Greenfield project. It's a 95,000 square foot multiplex with IMAX, a five-story IMAX screen, and a 4DX theater, VIP theaters, restaurant, 22 acres in total. But in that, so we have 14 acres planned for future development and future phases. That really gave the light bulb went off, and I said, you know what, it's time to go on your own. It's time to just step off and jump off the cliff, right? And so by this point, it's late 2016, going into 17. I'm inbound to my third child, out of my parents' home, anywhere there yet. We all kind of like in the struggle together, trying to build. And I just decided to pull the cord, right? And I stepped forward on faith. I started with myself, and 8 clients. And that firm is now, I can proudly say from 2017 to today, we have not missed one payroll. We now have 6 employees, 3 partners, and operate across multiple territories from the accounting firm perspective. And so that in of itself, that's one of my most proud achievements is that the core business that I would have stepped out on. on faith, was really, and I give full credit to my team. They really came on and they really bought into my vision. And, I have an extremely loyal team. We treat everyone, it's all about people, like people are your biggest asset. My employees share in profit. The big vision behind Kanoo, is really just expanding on the plethora of technologies that we have access to and maximizing that ecosystem of technologies into our super app for deployment. Like what we really want to do behind with Canoe is really connect the Caribbean through technology. It's simple as that. And how do we do that? The ways that we envision protecting our users' privacy rights, their identity, right? So we have a number of strategic investments that we would have made in this identity space where we really want to birth to ownership of your digital identity. You want to give that to the individual users and to enable that as an ultimate fraud protection such that your liveness is a requirement to authenticate any transaction. And you're able to see what businesses are pulling your data, what data they're utilizing, and then obviously the evolution of that would be where you can monetize your data and access to your data, so such that if you so wish. Um, so we see ourselves as an empowerment tool for the Caribbean. Our mantra is about partnerships, right? So when we go in a country, like who do we partner with, right? Which companies do we partner with? Which people do we partner with? And we look for persons aligned with our values and aligned with this concept of improving and uplifting the lives of the people in which we serve. Canoe comes along with another company that we would have set up, the Canoe Innovation Hub. And what this does, Innovation Hub is dedicated solely to providing education, incubation, and access to person in the communities we operate by forming strategic partnerships with entities such as the Draper Ecosystem, Draper, and the Draper University. We would have partnered with and run a program of individuals that would have gotten opportunities to pitch their project to Silicon Valley investors and to be able to have funding. We have a partnership now with the U.S. Embassy's SYNC program, which is around science, youth, culture, working with a group of young students now and introducing them to 3D printing and elements of that world. And so how do we provide opportunities for the individuals in the communities that have an idea, that don't know how to set up a business or don't know how to access the technology or, they don't know the what to do, right? But they have great ideas and they're great attitudes and you know, how do we facilitate that? And the more of that that we can do and show people, hey, this is what we did, this is how we did it. Here's some technology that we have access to that can empower you as well. So we with the Canoe ecosystem, the super app for businesses, a business can be up and running and selling product online within 24 hours of engaging Canoe with an ability to have their products published in their own website, or if they don't have a website, you give them a single site where at least their products can be up and they can be paid and start making money. So that's big in terms of empowering the small business. That's to what we want to do as we expand.
Okay, so tell me something. Just for the listeners out there who may not be as familiar with Canoe, can you just give a brief explanation of what Canoe does, what the business has been like for the past few years, and what? Because I know you had a pivotal point with Canoe in terms of how you want it to look, by the end of this year and going forward. So, if you could just give us that brief history, a nice summation of what it does and what's the outlook for Kanoo going forward.
So Canoe is a super app. It's an application for users And so users download this application and that comes with a digital wallet. The digital wallet is multi-tender, all right? And so that digital wallet is also connected to a marketplace. And that marketplace is empowered by our merchant services. So we engage businesses as well. So we have two types of clients. So we have individual clients where they have access to a free mobile app and technically digital banking services essentially through the wallet. And then we have the same digital banking wallet services available to the businesses with the added features of a product marketplace and the ability to engage and create digital gift cards, distribute them within the network, and to facilitate them receiving payments and then also accepting online payments. So that's at the core of what we do. And then just enhancing the experience around that is what we want to further as we go throughout the year.
I heard you say before in another interview that Kanoo is really a marketing engine with payments at its core.
Yes. And that's on the business side. So for the businesses, so you can imagine what we do when we engage a business is we give them what's called an ARM or an audience relationship manager. And that ARM is a web-based tool that has the business wallet. So it has their CBDC and it has their bank account, their digital bank account, essentially, so you see their transactions. And it has a marketing engine. So what is central to the ARM is this marketing engine that enables the business to create a gift card campaign, digital coupons, digital punch cards, birthday clubs, text messaging, and publish and promote their products within the application where right now we have over 40,000 users. So a small business that on board could potentially selling to 40,000 users within 24 hours. In addition to engaging the world through the World Wide Web, through the single site connect zone is what we call it. And that's a free API that comes with every ARM package. So businesses, if you have a developer, you literally copy and paste that into your site and that's your payment link. And if you need a shopping cart, there's a feature in there as well for that. So we meet the business where they're at. I would say there's a lot of the education behind the use of these digital tools. Like, so if you think about a business owner, like who has time really to go and design like as a business user, to go and design a gift card campaign. I'm busy cashing at the front. I'm making sure that there's no cash going out the window or I'm stocking my shelf or I'm dealing with these employees. So what we did is we created multi-tiered access to the from an administrative perspective, we could provide those marketing tools directly to the marketing managers and the individual persons within and so without them having access to the banking components or the payment components, they can still engage in the marketing side of business. So yeah, we make money when our businesses make money, essentially. So the more that we can innovate around assisting those businesses to engage their client bases and to create their own communities amongst their clients, the more we will make. And so it's not burdensome on the client. So that's the approach that we've taken. And it's something that's been successful and we want to roll it out before the end of the year.
I understand you that Kanoo also took part in the rollout of the Sand Dollar, which is one of Bahamas' central bank digital currency, CBDC. So what was that like? How's the adoption been? And has that made payments extremely much easier for folks in the Bahamas?
So Sand Dollar really is just another unit of payment for another unit of measure for the Bahamian dollar, albeit digital, utilizing the cryptographic technology and blockchain. We are an authorized financial institution and we were the first to enable those payments in an online environment We would have also built out and deployed a government payment system for use of that CBD system. I will say that the adoption has been minimal or marginal. However, there's been a measured approach in terms of making the infrastructure available and getting the security elements right by our central bank. And there's obviously a lot of education that needs to go out as to what is a CBDC, how it can be used, how it impacts you, right? Obviously, everyone, there's a big concern about the CBDC and the whole, elements of or thinking around the government being in my pocket, so to speak. I think that's a lot of a bit, some of conspiracy, but still, nonetheless, it's a human concern, right? We as human beings have a concern for privacy, and we have a right for these things. And so where we sit, we have had a very interesting, I would say, viewpoint into the evolution of the world's first central bank digital currency. And I'm actually very proud of what our central bank has done and the approach that they have taken in that initially in launching that they were clear in the communication that this would be treated no different than a Bahamian dollar, which we have taken to heart in terms of the core value system around how we develop our wallet and how we enable our users to access CBDC within our wallet, bearing in mind that we want to ensure that we take our users' concerns, we keep those at the forefront. And so there is this need for technical infrastructure to be deployed by governments, to be deployed by merchants, and to be made accessible by individuals. And so this is the space that we're in actively building out these rails and roads and experiences so that the public and businesses can engage and transactions can flow. What the CBDC did enable was complete interoperability amongst all institutions, right? So it is an extremely efficient and effective means and modes of retail payment as well as wholesale settlement. And so these are some of the iterative functions and services that are going to be rolled out globally, worldwide. Like this is just the beginning. And it is something that is coming. Jamaica has launched their CBDC. The Eastern Caribbean Bank has also launched their CBDC. And so you're going to see this more and more and more of the countries. And so we want to take the expertise and the knowledge that we've learned here, building out infrastructure, deploying the world's first GovPay system to enable payments for and by government departments that is customized to the financial regulatory system of the country, meaning that by department, signatory authority, multi-signatory authority, controls around the signatory authority, also the sweeping and the treasury management functions of the Ministry of Finance and all of the various associated departments has been factored into the design of that system and built in a way that is completely managed and run by the government. And so this is a system we're in the process of with one of our major international partners, reiterating this and redeploying this for a global rollout. We made a number of significant investments in a company that's in the CBDC space as well, and doing some work in West Africa to kind of bring that whole initiative together, which is separate and apart from Kanoo, but Kanoo facilitates a sand dollar wallet within its super wallet per se. So whatever payment, our vision is whatever you want to pay with as a customer, we want to enable that. And we want to enable that in a safe and effective way for you, the user, and also enable the business to be able to accept that payment. So our involvement with the Sand Dollar is not exclusive, but it's inclusive, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. I want to crystallize what you're talking about with Kanoo and digital payments and financial inclusion and the CBDC and everything with this story of what happened in North Andros. So I would love for you to tell that story about the vandalized ATM and really drive home that point in terms of the value of having digital payments and digital payments facilitation in our islands, and I'm glad you're also doing it on the continent, on the West Africa.
Yeah, we have a lot of similarities in terms of our challenges and the complexities of the realities amongst different Caribbean islands. Like you'd be surprised, like in Guyana, they have the same connectivity issues and access issues for persons living in the various regions within that country. And so, Andros is the largest island in the Bahamas. We have 700 islands and keys in total, 11 major inhabited. The entire Bahamas could fit inside of Andros, yet maybe 10,000 persons live on Andros. And so the community is much smaller. There used to be two bank branches in Andros. And so those banks, the business model of maintaining a physical branch is simply didn't make sense anymore, and the bank branches closed down. And so literally persons on that island were left with an ATM, right? So that is the only way and means for them to access cash. But unbeknownst to a lot of people, like there's this education, right? To know what is available, right? And so there's no longer a need for that physical cash on the island by simply providing the bridge of connectivity to your digital wallet. If your digital wallet is connected to your bank account in New Providence, in another island, you can push and pull and move and send and spend and exist all with your mobile phone operating within the community. And so what our model encompasses is taking those cash generating businesses such as your gas stations, your food stores, merchants that have high cash turnover. We take those locations, we put a system, we put the POS system in place at those locations, and we effectively make those locations our bank branches. So persons, if you need physical cash, you go in with your mobile phone to the gas station, you scan, and they give you cash. If you need to deposit physical cash, you go to the grocery store, you give the cashier cash, you scan, and you deposit. And you can move that and push that and pull it to your actual bank account in New Providence at a commercial bank, or you can simply utilize the wallet services that we provide and not ever really have to open a bank account. And so that's where we really drive the financial inclusion. So there's multiple levels. So there's a tiered approach. So someone that has no identity document, for example, that would be excluded from opening a bank account. In the first instance, they can download the app and they can access storage up to $500 in digital cash. So this includes them now in this banking financial system. They can begin to save. They can begin to have access to these payment tools. So they can now use that to buy it from an online store in Nassau and have it shipped. And they can receive that payment from so it begins to start the journey of inclusion there. Now the next level is $15,000, and so that is where you provide your passport, it's automatic verification, or two forms of ID, government issued ID that is verified, compliance checks, and then that now enables you to hold and spend more from your wallet services. So you can access Sand Dollar Wallet and or a Kanoo wallet with no identity and hold up to $500. That was a risk-based approach that our central bank implemented to say that in order to effectuate or drive the goal of inclusion, we would take a risk-based approach to allowing a minimum level of transaction activity to occur. in an anonymized fashion. It's something that's available today, and it's a matter of just getting that education out to the people so that they know how to go about the logistics of engaging in the digital services for their benefit.
Okay. So I'm mentioning this because I saw that it was announced in a public forum. But in I would say about 2 years ago, yeah, in 2022, it was announced that Kanoo was acquiring LUHU, founded by another Olympian, Mr. Zwede Hewitt, and also a countryman of mine, a fellow
Right.
Trinidadian. What was the thinking behind that, and how do you see the integration going between what LUHU was proposing to do and what Kanoo is doing?
I think we were initially drawn to a line along the lines of, I guess, that Olympic spirit and value. Like in meeting him, I saw a lot of myself in him and a lot of the vision that I had in Canoe, I saw he had also in LUHU. And so literally, like in one conversation, the first conversation we had, they presented LUHU. And so the guy was saying, you gotta meet the team, you gotta meet LUHU, you gotta meet LUHU, you gotta talk to, this team. And, to be honest, like I was so wrapped up in Canoe and just wanted to focus on our own interests. I didn't really think that there was anything that we could align on. And so we met. And so right after that initial call, it was like, okay, wow, right, we see it. And then we kind of texted on the side. We had another call and, I was like, hey, we've built this technology that you're about to raise money to spend and build out. Let's come together. We need partners on the ground. At that time, we weren't looking at Trinidad at all. I felt that would be a perfect alignment and partnership for us to access Trinidad. And what better way to do that than with a partner on the ground in Trinidad that's in the same space, that's aligned with us, and that we can throw our support behind, right? And so that's kind of like the genesis of that. I think we have pretty much concluded that uh, transaction, and we are now in pretty much go mode. We would have, launched. We did ticketing for Commonwealth Youth Games, so we do have one job under our belt in Trinidad right now, and making application for our license. We hope to be successful with that application in short order as well. But a lot of thought has gone into how we roll out this new technology, the structure, the means, and the manner in which we roll it out. I think we're just about there, and that's one of the projects. Trinidad. So Trinidad will see a massive canoe launch in 2024, and through the fashion in Trinidad, we'll have a proper line and flag raising ceremony when we launch. Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice. No, so in addition to that, I heard on another show that you're looking to have, well, you have operations in 5 countries. You complete an acquisition in the UK. You're looking to launch something in the US. You're very very much in acquisitive mode, focusing on international M&A. You currently have about 10 targets you're looking at, especially in the AI, the payments, and the CBDC space.
Yeah. So we went on a little spree there for a bit. To be honest, we pulled the plug on M&A activity
Okay.
for right now, just due to capacity to physically close some of these deals. So it's like you hear about merge M&A, right? So it's like, oh, M&A, right? And then you start going to do it, or like, you encounter your first one and it's like, oh, due diligence. Uh, it's just it's relationship, like managing relationships, managing people, integration, technology. So we were like, okay, so we looked at this strategic suite of investments and that we wanted to close. We locked those in, and we're in the process of finalizing that now. So we stopped any new activity until we could get our house in order, so to speak, administratively and structurally, to be able to embark onto that phase of a business. So it's like that business activity kind of came before we were really ready for it, but the opportunities were there and we couldn't let them pass. So we had to figure it out, and we just kind of like rode the boat down the stream, so to speak. And but it was very fruitful. We learned a lot. We did acquire a company in the UK that is in investment advisory and investment management space. We have four additional Caribbean territories. I don't want to announce, obviously, Trinidad is one. We would
Right.
have done the Commonwealth Youth Games there. But there are
Okay.
two other territories in the Caribbean that we have boots on the ground now, and we're finalizing the acquisition, just pending regulatory approval in the press. So all of those expected to be announced fully in the next 2 to 3 months.
So, in terms of the funding of these acquisitions, are these from internally generated cash from canoes that, like, you guys just been able to accumulate a nice war chest? Or is it that, okay, well, you go out and you raise some capital to fund these acquisitions?
That is one of the things that every entrepreneur has to basically encounter, right? Fundraising. We have been fortunate enough, and I would say probably a benefactor of the prior history that I would have had in the accounting world, and assisting other businesses with raising capital. So for Canoe, we actually were able to bring on as a founder, our funding partner is a founder of Kanoo. So we have internal funding. We don't have the traditional, I would say, capital raising concerns or issues that are taking time away from building the business. We have basically capitalized the company to to grow based on the vision to get to scale. And so we have put in place a pretty innovative financing structure to allow us flexibility to do that. And that is coming internally funded by the shareholders of the.
Fantastic. Okay. Just one more question on the acquisition stuff. In terms of valuation, how do you approach evaluation of these targets? Because, well, especially in LUHU's case, that was a very early stage sort of. I think it may have been pre-revenue. I'm not sure, but I know they had some level of traction. But how do you approach the valuation of these targets that you look to acquire?
Well, Kevin, I know you're a chartered business evaluator, so if I, my approach is maybe a bit vast or different than the traditional approach that you may recommend. Not sure, but I look at everything from those eyes when I look at the value. So I'm gonna look at the bottom line for that company. I have my partner Herbert Cash, who's also accountant, my partner in accounting firm and Kanoo, and everything that all of our investments we are the co-collaborators on. He's much more hard nosed than I am when it comes to the value and valuations, and so I leave that to him to kind of flesh out. But value at the end of the day, as you know, is really between a willing buyer and a willing seller, right?
That's
So
right. That's
what
part of
is
the
that?
definition.
Yeah. So that buyer, like you will find that in a particular transaction, the value to one buyer is much different than to someone else. It's a very esoteric space, valuation. My feeling is that valuation is a lot of art backed by science. If
Correct.
if that makes sense. So it's a
No,
very
that
interesting.
that that's it.
Yeah. So if that makes yeah. So that's kind of why I enjoy it so much. But I like to look at the particular company from the particular perspective or vantage point that I sit and that we sit. And I look at, okay, well, what strategic alliances do we have? What strategic relationships do we have? What strategic technologies that we can combine forces on and collaborate on. And then I look at first what do they think their value is, right? And if that comes in an acceptable range based on, my interpretation of, okay, what does this person and company bring to the table? Then now would take an approach to dive down on it now and say, okay, well, this is what you value your company at. But at the end of the day, in a lot of our negotiations, it comes down to say, hey, we want to work with you, but this is all we have. And this is how we would do it. Let's just throw that valuation out the window. Let's come to a cost basis. What is it is the needs of this collaborative approach? And then let's collaborate and let's approach it from that perspective. And like drilling down to what it is that you really need, the business really needs, and then finding that middle ground so that we can really make acquisitions for rock bottom prices and really invest in those acquisitions, provide capital to those acquisitions that maximizes the value of the vision and the collaboration. So we're not in the business of paying for a company at that company's valuation. Like we're looking at a company and we're saying, yeah, we understand you have a value. Now let's sit down and look at this collaborative approach. Let's look at what your needs are. Here's the strength and the competitive advantages of aligning with us because we have some structures to provide financing. And let's come to a rock bottom approach to align and grow. And that's really, I just take a case by case approach to evaluating that business. And when things get out of hand, at the end of the day, I always kick it over to Herbert, and then Herbert is going to take a sword and a machine gun to your financial numbers, and he's going to come back and say X, Y, Z. He's going to say, hey, Nick, this company is a waste of time, right? And I'm gonna come back and say, well, hey, let's think about this, and so that's how we work together. I utilize that to help us make better decisions. It's a uh, collective approach.
No, fantastic. That's so for the investor who's tuned into this episode right now. When we zoom out a little bit, where would you see the investment opportunities are for an investor who's looking at either like the digital payment space, the artificial intelligence space, the digital currency space within the Caribbean region?
I would say technology as a whole in the Caribbean is a huge opportunity. As you know, we have been behind the rest of the world in the technology race. Access to programmers, access to funding, and the opportunities to deploy these solutions. So you have countries all over the region that are looking at digitizing the services, their offerings, their operations. You have the implementation of artificial intelligence that is streamlining efficiencies within businesses, streamlining business processes, making those businesses more profitable as well. So there's a lot of ingenuity that's going to be happening around that. This obviously the central bank, digital currency space, payments, cross-border payments, and retail commerce and trade. All of these things are going to be revolutionized in the Caribbean. I think the Caribbean is on the precipice of a technical revolution, and this is going to be driven by those that have the knowledge, the creativity, the access to the technology, and the access to the funding resources to provide connectivity to the region. And so if I was an investor, I would be looking at a suite of technology products or project companies that can operate and add value to governments, businesses, and individuals. Certainly in the payment space, but definitely in identity and services areas. Because we have these different strategic technology investments on the table, packaging all of this into a sub fund or a technology fund to have the framework for investors to come in and get exposure to different elements of the technology. Artificial intelligence and identity are two areas that we are big in. now. And certainly we are developing this concept of which I can tell you about. It's called KAI, K-H or K-A-I, KAI, Kanoo Artificial Intelligence. And we want to build this out and make this available as a service to businesses that want to streamline their processes. And this is also something that we're building in central to the Kanoo technology. So aside from the investment fund and the investment structures that we're putting in place, those we'll be making available in 2025 to external investors who want to get involved. But we want to make sure that when we open the door for those investors to come in, we want to make sure that we've set the table essentially across multiple countries, multiple technologies, an integrated solution, and a fully tax efficient structure for the world's investors to come in. Because we're looking at not just Caribbean based investors, but also investors from the US that have tax considerations, the European Union that have different tax considerations, the Islamic investors that have a whole different investment structure and considerations under Sharia law. So we want to have these feeders and structures set up so that persons can participate in this grand vision and ecosystem that we would have created.
Fantastic. Look at that. All of that from the island boy who had to live in his parents' home for 4 years after being married and all of that, grew up dirt poor because his grandfather wasn't able to pass on that legacy wealth and everything. So when you draw from your experiences as an entrepreneur, as well as a business leader and investor, what advice would you offer to aspiring entrepreneurs in the Caribbean region, especially those who are looking to venture into fintech and digital entrepreneurship and the like?
The best advice that I could give is to stay open-minded. You don't know what you don't know. Approach every conversation and every interaction from that perspective. Everyone you encounter has something to teach you. And if you engage with a listening ear, you will find the opportunities that were meant for you. And this is essentially at the core of us living out our purpose, is being in tune, knowing ourselves, and listening and engaging in the regular occurrences of life to identify opportunities that we would have previously prepared ourselves for. And when those opportunities arise, we must act. So you must have the courage to just, hey, do it. And I would say, don't be afraid, but manage your risk and be positive. And if you can be positive and take a positive approach to overcoming hurdles, overcoming obstacles that will surely arise, you can surely have success in your business. And even if you fail quickly and try again. That's the mantra of all business entrepreneurs. Not everyone is going to make it, and not everyone is built, I think, for this life. It's difficult, it's stressful, but then that comes with knowing yourself. If you truly know yourself and what you want out of life and what you need to be happy, that would, help significantly as to whether or not you even engage in entrepreneurship or if you simply take a different approach in life. So the best advice is to know yourself and stay positive and fail quickly.
All right. Podcast world, there you have it. The future is tech with Nicholas Rees. Subscribe to The Value at thevalue.show/subscribe. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, wherever you get your podcasts. And with that, Podcast World, Nicholas.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Great to be here. All the best.
There you go. Podcast World, Cabin Studios. We are out.